Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining us on Fully Scored once again. It's a real pleasure to be speaking to you today.
You're very welcome. Always pleased to help and to partake in these extraordinary series of insights into Salvation Army music.
Fantastic. Well, I've never been called extraordinary before, but I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. So we're going to be looking at one of your major compositions for brass band today, Metamorphosis. And I believe this piece was published back in 2004, but the roots of the piece go back a few years before that.
Yes, I went through a fairly dark time in my life, starting in around about the year 2000. And it wasn't a good time for me. But in about 2001, I had a phone call from Major John Mott, and he indicated to me that the Household Troops Band were going to tour the USA and Canada, and he would like a piece, and he particularly wanted me to write one. And I was really taken and touched by that, because I was going through a difficult time at that moment, and this was something to lift me, and so I would ever be grateful to John for requesting me to write this piece, and is actually a kind of a testimony of my life, and where I was and where I am now. So it's quite an important piece for me, personally speaking.
And for those that don't have the Oxford Dictionary handy in their pockets, what does metamorphosis mean?
Well, I thought you might ask that question, Matthew. So the definition I've got is a profound change in form from one stage to the next in life history of an organism. So that's one definition, and I feel that that was the change that I had to go through myself, from one form into another form, and so it's a fitting title, I think, but one that indicates a profound change, and I believe that's what happens when Christ comes back into your life and gives you fulfilment and a purpose for living.
Excellent, and we'll unpack that, I'm sure, as we go through the music and look at the score and see that change in the music and also the message behind the music. So, can you tell us a little bit about when this piece was first written, how it was used by the household troops and the reception it sort of had? Did you get much feedback?
I got a little bit of feedback from John. It had a mixed reception, in that it was either they would be standing up and applauding and whatever, and the other reception was silence, both which are to me very acceptable. If this piece ended in silence, that really tells me that the message got home and people understood what it was about. And if people are in rapturous applause, then again the message got through, and they also appreciated what the playing of the band and the kind of feeling that the piece gives you at the conclusion. So I was happy with either of those responses, but it was interesting to hear that there was quite a mix of responses to this piece.
Really interesting to hear. And more recently, the music's been featured this year, 2024, at the Editorial Music School with Gavin Lamphouse Band, and we're also featuring it with Birmingham Cecil Band, and the music always seems to be well received from players and audiences alike. So I think it's time to dive into the score, and a good place to begin, I guess, would be the beginning. So it's quite a mysterious beginning here, with this pedal starting off in the timps and basses.
Yes, I wanted it to be mysterious, and I wanted it to be cold, and I wanted it to be stark, and I wanted to portray a kind of a barrenness, and so I had these pedal basses and the timp just starting the thing off in a unison note, and then a very straight sounding muted cornets and trombones. These are not warm instruments. Cornets and trombones, horns, baritones, you would expect warmth from them, but you can make a cornet section and a trombone section very kind of cold and stark and straight, particularly if it's muted. And so this is what I wanted to get here. The actual theme goes right in from the start. In his time. In his time.
In his time, what was the thinking behind the use of this melody? And could you tell us a little bit about where this song comes from?
It's a Maranatha song, a song from the United States, and it's a very lovely song. But it really kind of explained to me that God can make everything beautiful in his time, but it's up to us to say yes, and that was what I was trying to get across. The words, in his time, he makes all things beautiful in his time. Lord, please show me every day as you're teaching me your way, that you do just what you say in your time. So we can't dictate. When things go wrong, we can ask for forgiveness. We can invite the Lord back into our lives, but we can't dictate what is going to happen. And we have to allow the Lord to do his work. So that's really what I was trying to get across here. That yes, we can say we're sorry. We can accept that we've done wrong, but the reparation is in the hands of Christ, and we're going to be the recipient of that in his time, not in ours.
And looking back once again at this bass line here, it's a very unsettling melody and puts the listener certainly a bit on edge. Does this motif derive from anywhere later in the piece, or is there anywhere else we'll see this coming?
No, unless you found something I haven't. No, it really was. I was working the bass line in between the phrases of the "in his time" motive, which is in the cornets and trombones. So the basses needed to move during the long notes, and so this is what I did. It needed to be spooky and to be sinister, whatever. So very much kept it in kind of a modal feel, with the flattened seventh and the flattened sixth, if you're thinking of it in C. So it really is kind of without too much tonality there. But it needed to be barren. It needed to be stark. And yes, a little sinister as well, because it's very much reflective of a dark side of the piece.
So letter B, the cornets are open, and once again we hear that in his time motif used again, and then the band grows all of a sudden. What's happening here in the story of the music?
Well, I needed to get into the first theme, and it needed to be a quicker tempo. So I needed to grow this very quiet, sinister opening into something that was quick and sinister. So the whole kind of texture of the piece needed to grow, and just the basses, the cornets and the trombones was not enough. I needed to involve the whole band here, and these kind of rising quavers, and then 4 bars before C, we've got this kind of almost Victorionic type of motive in the flugel and first cornet and euphonium, with those octave jumps there, which really indicate something that this music is going somewhere, and it's going towards letter C. Big moment there where the music increases in tempo, quite a quick tempo, and the mood still stays dark, but it's like the tempo is upped and the music becomes more exciting, and the reason for that is it's going to be brought to a head later on in the piece. But so those 4 bars leading up to C is a means and a mechanism by which to take the stark, slow music into a quicker tempo.
Tempo kicks off really at letter C, and we have this quite macabre march, perhaps in a way. It reminds me a little bit perhaps of the Berlioz's March to the Scaffold, with that intense drive but yet a dark foreboding sound to it.
Interesting you should say that, but I've recently worked on a piece of music, March to the Scaffold, but yes, it has. It's unusually I left the tonality into the timps. It's not usually down to timps alone to kind of cement the tonality of the piece, but I knew who I was writing for, and I knew that the percussion section were it was for the Household Truths band, so I knew they were capable, good players. And I could rely on them on nailing that tonality in the timp particularly, and then the 2 euphoniums required to produce that macabre theme, as you say. Quite a tricky thing to play, but nevertheless it's there. There was a little bit of backworking here, if I might introduce that at this stage, because I knew what tune I was going to use in the second half of the piece, and it needed to have a musical metamorphosis as well as a spiritual one. And so the tune that comes later on in the piece, the cornet solo, which we'll talk about later, and this tune here in the euphoniums are very much connected. They have the same shape, and that is the musical metamorphosis of this piece. So we've got something like this. And the theme that comes later is... So they're very much similar shape, similar piece. And from a musical point of view, that is the metamorphosis. So this theme at the start is a derivation of that tune. It's in the relative minor, and so it's in C minor. The tune later is in E flat major, which is the relative major, and the tune has the same shape with the triplet feel to it. Although I've strengthened that through the semiquavers in the euphonium at the start, but the musical shape is the same. So that's where this macabre theme came from. It was a bit of a backwork from what I knew was coming later on, and we'll speak about that tune when we get to that in the music.
Fascinating to hear that link. I hadn't connected that before. So letter D, the band fills out, and we again have a repetition of the tune, this time in the solo cornets, but a lot of additional harmony and building in the band as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I needed to make this sound angry, and so I thought I would insert the horn interjection in bars 2 and 3 in D. Again, it's during the long note of the tune, and I used the last beat of the bar, of the second bar of D, ba ba da, and I used that in the horns as well as a kind of a reflection. So it is basically an echo of the tune in the cornets, with additional notes and quite harsh. If I was conducting this, I would say I want really harsh slurs there, da 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 da, to make that quite aggressive. So that's what's happening here.
So the music then introduces some new motifs that we see appear a couple of times in the preceding bars to E, with the whole band striking some chords, or almost the whole band striking these chords in rhythmic unison. What's the thinking behind these moments?
I had to bring the thing together. At the moment, we've got several strains. We've got the cornet tune, we've got the trombones accompaniment, we've got the basses, we've got the snare drum rattling through there, we've got the tenor horns, all doing different things. And the idea of the 3-4 bars before E is at this point they come together and they're unified in their kind of action and their motive, which is again one of anger and unrest. So I've got the basses doing something slightly different there, just to keep the interest. But yeah, everybody's coming together, they're unified, and this kind of anger prevails 3 or 4 bars before E, before we go again at letter E.
Quite a startling moment, that bar before E, where the whole band comes to a stop,
Yes.
completely for a few beats. Or a beat.
Yeah, quite dramatic, and I hope, and yeah, that's a kind of a. It's great to have these kind of points in band practices also, because they're good rehearsal fodder. Makes everybody play together, and the note length's got to be exactly the same, and all this is good training for bands. But from a musical point of view, it brings all the layers together at that point, and gives everybody indicates the same purpose, the same feeling about the music.
So at letter E we have similar material, but a few different things going on here. What should, as players of this piece, what should we be looking out for here in section E?
Well, we have another layer, basically. So the trombones now imitate the cornets. We still have the horns interjecting in bars 2 and 3, and we have this kind of semiquaver motive in the lower horn and baritones and euphoniums to keep the whole thing tripping along, similar to the snare drum. So lots of activity, lots of busyness, some canon ideas going on between the cornets and the trombones, and this all adds to the confusion and to the complexity and disarray of life. That's what I'm trying to get through here. So there's lots of things going on. Nothing is lined up and playing. It's all a mess. It sounds like there's a lot of things going on, and there are, and that is deliberate. So that's a state of mind, state of confusion, that this music is trying to portray at that point.
So at letter F, everything changes, and the music fizzles out, and we have the entry once again of the tune In His Time, but in a completely different approach this time. How does the narrative of the music change and take us on that journey here?
Well, I needed to present the In His Time tune in its completeness, because I wanted to really flag up that there were better things in life than what had gone before. And so from the starkness of the beginning, where I'm using cornets and trombones, muted cornets and trombones, to offer a very flat, cold sound, now I switch to the horns and the baritones, which have got a very warm sound, an almost cuddly type of approach, because this is the life that you can have. This is a small advert in between all what's going on of how life can be better with Christ. In His time, He makes everything beautiful in His time, and this is a glimpse of everything being beautiful once Christ has come into your life. So that's why I've tried to make this as lovely as I can. I thought long and hard about how I would score this. There was no question that it was scoring in the horns and baritones. Still a little bit of the opening bass line in underneath letter F, just a kind of reminder that it's still there. But when the cornets come in, the euphoniums have this lovely, I think it is, moment when they have these kind of quaver movement, and the thing just opens up. He makes everything beautiful in His time, and at that point, the music really kind of settles, and is warm, and is harmonious, and it just indicates to the listener that this could be the life if that's what you wanted.
And almost like you've had an ad pop up in the middle of a video on YouTube. That moment goes once again, and you are back into it at G with a foreboding and chaotic sound world.
Well, that's right, and that's exactly what it is, Matthew. It's like an advert that pops up. This is how it could be, but this is not where you are at the moment. And so, letter G, the music goes back to where we were. So we're back to the. I put it into the euphonium duet is now transformed into a horn and baritone duet. It's the same thing, and it's the start of the kind of the wind up to the big moment where the realization comes as to, well, this can't do, this has got to stop. So that's where I am at G. It's the start of the final kind of moments before things really change.
And interestingly, at G, the tempo's marked slower than it has been before. Is that a deliberate building of tension through the then accelerando?
I just wanted to give it a bit more room to start. Yes, it's just a little under, and again, just to give it a little more space, a little more room to get quicker, because we are on a very long accelerando now, up until quite a few bars later. So it's just a lower starting point, just to give a bit more dramatic effect.
Perhaps where that dramatic effect comes to effect is the presto that we have before section I. We have a presto flying around in the cornet section, and then some unison stab chords all coming to a head in bar 100 before the music fizzles out and almost the earth beneath us is taken away. What's the narrative here?
The narrative here is that's the realisation, that's the moment where things have got to change. There's a total confusion before that presto, and maybe the presto is the height of it. The presto is the moment that really indicates this is terrible, this has got to change. And so the cornets are absolutely flying, semiquavers at 160, which is fast, and that kind of, those semiquavers go through to the euphoniums and basses, and at the end of that there's a big whack on the tam tam, and timpani get involved as well, very loudly before the diminuendo. But there is a real crash there, as to say, that's the point of realisation. That's the big bang, and it's got to stop. That's the moment.
And then, quite unusually for Salvation Army pieces, I would imagine, certainly before this was published and still today, we have 4 cadenzas.
I wanted to demonstrate God's time, and we don't know how much time that is. And I felt that if I'd written a solo line for 4 instruments, let's say, in a time signature, then that is not free time, and that was too prescripted. So the cadenzas, because they are open to interpretation, every time somebody plays that cadenza it will be different in terms of speed and style, and that to me indicates that it's not our time, it's God's time. It's different. We don't know how long that's going to be. And so putting the cadenzas in there, for me, was a way of demonstrating that we don't know how long this is going to take. That's the whole point of the cadenzas. The other musical thing about this is that the cadenzas, they end and start on the same note, and the idea is that the instrument that takes over the entry, their first note, is masked by the last note of the previous solo, so they don't hear where that instrument comes in. They just hear a kind of an emergence of a slightly different timbre of sound on those notes. and all the cadenzas, by the way, feature little segments of In His Time. So that was another element which kind of guided the shape of the cadenza. So the chorded cadenza, la da da, In His Time, and then the horn cadenza, da da, He makes everything beautiful, la da 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 dee, and then the euphonium, la da 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 da, and then the bass, da 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 da, have all that kind of part of their tune. Sorry about the singing. You can tell why I play the piano and not singing the staff songsters, and so they all contain that element of the tune. So that was the driver, and the pitch was absolutely to wind down the intensity.
So then at letter J, you have an absolutely exquisite melody that comes. Could you tell us a bit about this melody?
Yeah, it's strange because never in my compositional years have I developed a tune or had a tune that I'd kind of had in my mind for so long. This tune came to me ages before this piece did, and it was, I felt that this was a really lovely tune that I kind of got from somewhere, and I thought I must use it at some point. And so when we were talking about the theme, the angry theme in the euphonium and duet, that was an adaptation of this. This is the tune that came first, and so I kind of rewound what I needed it. So I had this tune, and I thought, this feels like a really lovely tune, and whatever I write next, I will try and incorporate this tune. And then the invitation came from John to write this piece. So I thought, right, okay, well this tune's got to feature. It's an important tune, and I've had it for a long time, and it was kind of refined over the years almost. So yes, there's this tune. It didn't have words when I wrote this, and we like to have tunes that have words, but this was the metamorphosis. This was the change into the brighter future kind of music. It since does have words, and because I've reused the tune in another piece, in a choral symphony for the staff songsters, but the words that have subsequently been written, say, from Calvary, where true love was shown, Christ calls for me, I am not alone. The interesting line is the third one, for all time and for each day. Now, when those words were written, there was, the word time was not in my mind at letter J when I wrote that, but the words now say, for all time and for each day, his love is all I need to walk in his way, and that so fits this piece that is quite remarkable, I thought. For all, because we're talking about time, in his time. He makes everything beautiful in his time, and those words, for all time and for each day, his love is all I need to walk in his way.
a very poignant musical and spiritual moment there in the piece.
I've tried again. I've borrowed the idea of a contest piece in a sense that the euphonium should echo the tune at this, like you say, poignant moment. It just feels so right that the tune is from the cornet passed to the euphonium, and it just sits very nicely in both of those instruments, and got the right feeling that I wanted at that particular moment. A little moment in the flugelhorn, third bar of K, just to kind of put a little bit of interest on top of the melodic line, which seems to work quite nicely as well. So very, very pleased with how this kind of evolved, and it's the essence of what life is with Christ. It is a beautiful thing, and for all time and for each day, His love is all I need to walk in His way. The essence of those words is there as well.
And after that wonderful oasis of calm and tranquility, we're off again at letter L.
Well, we need to celebrate, and so this was the thought here, that we've gone through this transformational change, and now we're going to no holes barred. We're going to really celebrate and, thank the Lord for coming into our life again, and so this is a celebration from here until near the end, and I'd recently written a song called "It Is Jesus Christ the Lord," and the chorus says, "Glory, glory, hallelujah. It is Jesus Christ the Lord." Now, that is the answer to the questions that precede it in the verses. And one verse says, "Who is this who takes his people to their everlasting home, with their steps which once were tired, now forever cease to roam?" Well, it's Jesus, it's Christ. "Who is this whom in beauty by the people once was seen, who is dressed in robes of innocence, with splendour all serene?" So every question in this song, the answer is glory, glory, hallelujah, it is Jesus Christ the Lord. And that just felt right to me, that the questions that we had in the first half, how do I make life better? This can't be right. What is the answer? The answer is, it is Jesus. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Once again, the music changes perhaps form to maybe a more declamatory fanfare, perhaps, at section O with these repeating ostinato figures. Again, what's happening in the narrative here? Is this a continuation of the celebration?
Yeah, it is. It's a peal of bells. So if you can imagine that at Christmas time, when everybody is celebrating the birth of Christ, bells are rung. When there's a wedding, bells are rung. When there's particularly, when you listen to a royal wedding or celebration or a coronation or something on the television, a peal of bells is ringing, and so that is what we've got here. The cornets are bells celebrating the fact that Christ has come into our life. So we've got tubular bells there, we've got the snare drum rattling through there. Okay, the basses have got some slightly sinister, but kind of motive there. But the overall feeling is that the bells and the celebration can override that. That's got to be the thought there. So yes, very much a celebration, and that leads up to towards the climax at the end now. But we're in celebration mode, and we're partying at this time and having a good time, and really celebrating what has happened in this metamorphosis.
And I guess letter Q, everything is sort of tied together in a Beethovenian way. We have lots of themes from earlier in the music coming together, but in absolute joy and celebration. Could you talk us through a few things that we should be looking out for in this section at Q?
Well, it's the big tune, and it's got to be celebratory. So I've kept it very busy. The back row cornets and euphoniums and baritones have got the tune, and that's got to prevail. And then we've got flying demi-semiquavers in the solo cornets and soprano, just kind of again celebrating. We've got the movement in the trombones, which is keeping the whole thing rhythmically going and giving it some kind of momentum. And we've also got plenty of things going in the snare drum, which will just keep the whole thing really rattling along. There's just a kind of a hint of Wilfred Heaton, just at the start of, just before Q. I needed some declaration there from the trombones, and Wilfred Heaton. I had this figure in my mind, heard from Heaton, and so I thought, okay, I could use something like that. So I just lifted a bar and a half of that figure, just to declare from the trombone section that we're into the final section now, and this is like the trumpets opening the gates to letter Q.
Physical end indeed.
Yeah, I had to make up for the fact that there wasn't like a big coda. So after the tune, there wasn't a kind of a everybody kind of goes mad and leading to a big finish. I didn't have one of those. I wanted to go straight out because I felt that I'd said what I needed to say. So after the big tune, it just goes straight into the last 5 bars. So in order to bridge the gap between not having a kind of a coda before the last 5 bars, as it were, you need to make the last 5 bars even bigger. So I was really, I want everything there. I've got an inverted pedal in the soprano and the solo cornet on a top C, holding everything together. And that's got to sing and resonate through over the whole band, and the snare drum and the timp have got these demi-semiquavers, which makes it all very exciting, and then the tam-tam, which is so often used at the end of pieces, and that just kind of bridges the gap whilst the brass players have a big breath before the last note. And I just this sense of conclusion and victory is a big deal, and I wanted it to sound like a big deal, and to me This piece is my testimony. I wanted it to sound like, yes, I've refound Christ, and that is the be all and end all to me. So that is really what the ending's about. It's about celebrating. It's about finding your way. It's about knowing Christ as your saviour, and I wanted that to be shouted from the rooftops.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for sharing this music with us and the insights, but more importantly, thank you for sharing your testimony with Salvationist musicians all around the world.
Thank you.